Hey everyone, really cool conversation today. I'm hanging out with, get ready for Tim Ruswick! And today is going to be a conversation where we talk about indie developer related stuff and we dive into all those things that we know people have questions. We're going to share from our experiences. It's going to get emotional, it's going to get real, it's going to be good times. So, should we dive in?
Let's do it. So, one of the things that I get asked about a ton is marketing. I used to run a marketing company. I used to be involved in that world, and I was actually really hesitant about it because the way that a lot of people see marketing is like this, I don't know, dirty thing. Like marketing, you gotta like convince people, you gotta manipulate them into buying your stuff. Any artist, any creator, anybody has to learn how to sell their stuff. You have to. It's not a maybe. It's not a, oh, I'm going to hire somebody to do that. It's not, I'm going to get an investment to pay for somebody. You have to understand how to sell your stuff because it helps you build stuff that people want to buy. It helps you make better stuff.
But can't you just make a good game and put it on Steam and then Steam will take care of the marketing? Isn't that the way that it works, Tim?
So this is something that's really kind of, since I've tipped the scales from doing marketing full time to like actually creating full time, I've literally realized how valuable my marketing experience was. Like when I was a little kid, I wanted to make video games, right? I played Halo, that inspired me, and I literally that night I Googled how to make games. And then I went on this path and ended up running a marketing company. And at 26, 27, I was in marketing and I was very miserable in my life and I wanted to quit and I sold everything. And then I started to make video games. And for a while there, I was very unhappy because I was like, I wasted my life, man. I always wanted to make video games. It took me all that time to like get to it, right? But the more that I do this, the more I realize how marketing has helped me create. And what a lot of people don't understand what marketing is, they don't get that it's empathy. It's understanding another human being and understanding their perspective well enough to be able to say something that will get them to buy. And that skill, talk about ultimate game design, talk about making a good game, empathy is how you make a good game. Because if you can't understand the emotional journey of a player, understand how they're going to interact with your things, understand the core concepts enough to like build something that they're going to interact with, at least the way that you want as a designer, you're missing out.
I agree. And I think the first place to start off is what's the experience you're looking to make for someone. So if someone sits down and they're watching the latest Marvel movie, there's an experience, there's a journey, there's a sense of adventure, there's a sense of feeling like a superhero or spending time with your favorite characters. So there's an experience. Just the same with video games or books or TV shows, anything. And so if you come from a place of, I'm going to make good mechanics, my game's going to have good mechanics and a nice story, then you're not thinking about the experience. So when it comes time to market your game, you're like, what do I say? That I've got 12 levels? No one cares you got 12 levels. That's not why they're buying your game. They're buying your game because when someone plays your game, they're going to feel like a rock and roll star, or they're going to feel like a ninja, or they're going to be horrified or scared. Like, it's that experience that I think then makes your marketing messages so much easier. Say you've made a horror game. Your game, the experience needs to be, this is the scariest game that you can play. This is scary. This is going to scare the pants. You're going to need new undies after you play this game. That's how scary this game is. And so then in your marketing messages, what are you talking about? You're doing jump scares. You're saying it's scary. You're putting all your imagery of, ooh, this is all... it's going to scare the pants off you, so to speak. So I think those two, as a game designer, it doesn't have to be game marketing separate. I think they have to be the same thing. The same experience comes through all of your marketing. And, maybe this is a little bit too tactical, but what I'd love to know from your experience, Tim, is what is all of the marketing? I've made my game. It's a horror game. It's so scary. It's amazing. I've got a couple of things that I know people like when I say, you'll have to change your undies. It's like, yeah, people like that. I'm going to have that in my marketing. What do I do?
Okay, so that is a question like asking how to build a car.
Yeah, I know.
I could get, it's going to take us a while to get through that. But There's a lot of things you can do. So first of all, the very first thing I think anybody needs to do in marketing is understand what you're making, and understand who wants it and why. Because a lot of people, so one of the biggest mistakes that I see is game developers thinking that they're doing marketing by posting in developer Facebook groups or going on Reddit and all this stuff. And yeah, that's a form of marketing. But the mistake there isn't so much that you're reaching out to people, because reaching out to people is good. Exposure is good.
Yep.
But marketing is really effective when it's targeted exposure. When there's a Venn diagram overlap of people that want your thing and you reaching to them, right? So like a lot of people think their target audience are game developers. I think developers can be part of your total audience. Like they absolutely will buy your games. If anybody can prove that, it's me. Like I literally sold most of my indie games to developers just because I had my YouTube channel that helped developers.
Yep.
But
and it's often the first phase of getting feedback, isn't it? Because the indie game development community is very open to, let's give you feedback. Let's have a look at what you show me yours, I'll show you mine. And I think it's great for helping you identify what's the message that people respond to. Like what I was saying before, my dumb example of you'll have to change your undies. If you throw a whole bunch of things out there and that's the one that people are like, I like that, you're like, got it. Thank you, fellow developers. I've now got something that I can use. You've helped me. As opposed to, you've gone and bought my game.
Right. So that speaking of that is a fantastic tactic, because one of the things you're gonna want is a way to explain your game simply. And there's a lot of ways that people do this that, and we can get specific too if you want. Like there's a lot of ways that people do this that I think are more or less effective, sometimes less so, sometimes in weird ways. One of the main ones that you see is it's like Super Meat Boy meets whatever, right? That for the right game can be effective. It just getting across what your game is, like at very, very quickly, but you have to make sure it's a game that they're going to understand. So you would not believe how many times I get pitched by a game. It's like some game I never heard of meets some game I've never heard of, and that does nothing for me. I
some
have
obscure
no idea.
Japanese RPG.
Yeah.
You're like,
so you got to make sure it's a good example. Like if you use like a mainstream type of thing, like Darkest Dungeon or Super Meat Boy, like most people understand what those are. The other one is like Tough as, I don't know why, because I built a platformer, right? Tough as nails platformer seems to be like a really common thing that a lot of people say about their thing, and in the platformer world anyway. And like I remember just thinking like, okay, I'm making a very difficult, challenging platformer, but like everybody describes their platformer that way, so how can I separate mine out?
Because describing the features, not describing the experience.
Right.
So your game was a journey of love and fear of love, right?
My
Using
game was
that
called Philophobia, the fear of love, and that's what it was about.
Because that for me is more interesting and engaging than saying it's a difficult platformer, because I've got a lot to choose from in difficult platformers. But I think what you're doing there, you're creating an emotional connection, I think.
Yeah, and see, that's going back to talking about how marketing affected my design choices. Like a lot of the design of the game was built around those concepts specifically because of reasons like that, because I wanted people to talk about it. I wanted people to share it. And like, yeah, the game was based around the 5 stages of grief. You go through anger, denial, all that stuff. You fight your way through it. It's about the fear of love, and it was launching on Valentine's Day. Like there's a lot of little pieces in there that they're all pretty much very similar. They're all about the same thing, but they're all individual, like little hooks, little interesting stories in themselves that we'll talk about. And one of the things I made sure of is no one is ever going to confuse my game with another game. That will never happen. It looks distinctive. The name's distinctive. The subject matter is distinctive. Like it is impossible to say, oh, well, that's.
Hang on, this isn't Broforce. What have I bought?
And that's another big thing too. Is like the first thing I do if someone wants to ask me like, hey, what do you think of this screenshot? Like if you Google that genre and screenshots and like all that stuff comes up and you can't tell them apart. It's not distinctive enough. Like
So I'm really interested because personally, for me, I feel that I've got a good handle on the game design part of things, and I think a lot of people think they do, whether they do or they don't. They think they do. I know how to make a game. I know how to make an emotional game. This experience stuff you're talking about, Rick, I got that. It's all cool. Having it look different, I've got that. But where do I tell people about it? Like, do I make a Twitter? Do I do some Twitters? And I think that is what I see a lot of people getting stuck on, the
Right.
mechanics of who do I tell? How do I tell them? Do I approach YouTubers and journalists? Do I try to get people to let's play my game? Do I go to conferences? Do I try to have a booth at an expo? What have you found, whether your games or people you've talked to, other indies out there? What have you found is a good first step effectiveness? Not the what does the Darkest Dungeon guys do, but what's the first thing that you think, like, make sure you've got a such and such. Like, that's the first entry point into your marketing machine.
Okay, I will tell you. The very first thing you got to do, no matter what you're marketing, is you got to separate your core concept. And we're starting a little conceptual, but I'm going to get tactical in just a second.
Okay.
You have to separate exposure from marketing. Those are not the same thing.
Okay, cool.
So we have to define our terminology here, because a lot of people, you say go do marketing, what they think is, I got to get people to see my stuff.
Yeah.
That's exposure. That's not marketing. Okay? It's part of marketing, but it's not marketing on itself. So getting exposure is fine, but the problem is a lot, like, okay, people try and go everywhere because they think the goal is exposure, right?
Yep.
So they try in the Twitter, they try the Facebook, they try the Reddit, they try all the stuff.
Just spam it out there. Buy my game, buy my game,
It's
buy
just
my game. Here's
get
my
it
game.
everywhere. YouTubers, you know.
Greatest opening lines are, "You'll be happy to know my game is finished." I kind of don't care your game's finished.
Didn't know your game existed. Don't really care. Yeah. So
finally
separate those two concepts in your brain. Exposure is necessary for marketing, but it's not marketing. It's part of marketing. Marketing is a bigger umbrella of exposure to sale, that whole process, right?
Yep.
So once you've done that, once you understand that, okay, just getting people to look at your thing does not equal them buying your thing, right? Like, you can start to understand, okay, what can I do to get people to buy it? And the way that you start that process is you start with the people that already want to buy it. You just got to find them. That's a big thing. So you are not looking for anybody. You are looking for people that are specifically willing to buy your game right now. And the best way to find those people is to do what's called a competitive analysis in the marketing world. And basically take the similar games to yours and just research the shit out of them. So, like, I'm making a platformer, right? I probably should pick more relevant late examples than like Super Meat Boy, but that's one that everybody understands. It's a good comparison to my game. It's got kind of an emotional tale to it. It's got it's hard platform mechanics. It's got like instant restart. Like, a lot of the mechanics are the same. So a lot of people that are fans of that game would be fans of my game, just mechanically. So, like,
okay, something you said just then has triggered something in my brain. If I've played Super Meat Boy and I dug it and I want another one like that, then I'm ready. I'm ready.
Right.
I wish there was another thing that I like that was like this game. Okay, cool. I'm following you.
And you can cut out so much work if you just go after that person, right?
Ah, yeah.
Like, you can get in front of 1,000 people on some random YouTube channel or whatever, but if you get in front of 10 of those, you're going to do better. You know what I mean? Because they're like, they want the thing. So that's like the best, most effective way to do it. So you find a bunch of similar examples, and the easiest, I'll share the easiest way to like go from like thing you do to making money, is to take, say, 5 or 10 games. You can go on Steam, you can look up similar tags, you can go on Google, you can look up similar genres. You can go and look at the related tags in like Steam, like this game is related to this game. You just kind of, you go down the rabbit hole and you find 10 games, and then you Google those. And there's actually a quick tactical thing that I can share. If you type something in quotes in Google, it'll only show exact results. So you can look specific, and anybody that's going to Google search should look up all the shorthand stuff you can do on Google, by the way, because it's insane. the amount of stuff, the way you can analyze it all. So then you can find every article, every YouTuber, every streamer that's ever covered those games. Ever.
Yep.
You can get all of their email addresses. You can get all of their contact info. And after a week's worth of boring spreadsheet work, you can have a contact list of a bunch of people that have massive audiences that are willing to cover your game, that have readership that wants to buy the game, right? That's the most effective strategy by far.
That is massive. If someone is sitting there saying, I've got a game, what do I do? Step one, find people who are already talking about a game that's similar to your game, and contact them and have a conversation with them. And there, there's a lot more we can talk about in terms of that stuff, but that's gold. That's way better than just shouting out into the Twitter universe, I made a game.
That's one of those things that's like 90% of the result for 10% of the work. Like, just that's so like good. The hack, right? There's a bunch of other stuff you can do, but like that's like the most effective, easiest.
So I can see someone sitting there thinking, but my game is not as good as Super Meat Boy, or my game, why would they play mine instead of that one? Or if they've already bought Super Meat Boy, why would they also buy my game? And I think they're things that we put in the way. They're just conversations we tell ourselves because we're a little bit worried our game's not good enough. And I think as a creative, your game's never good enough. It's like like your baby. You're like, my baby's not, it's a little bit, I wish it didn't quite look as ugly as I do. I wish it was a little bit whatever. Like, it's never going to be perfect. You just have to trust that what you've done is good and give it your best shot.
I spent 4 years on a platformer because I was terrified that I was making a horrible game. And honestly, I could have done it in 6 months and it would have been just as good. Like, people, what I realize is this, and I realize this kind of self-analyzing myself and like working with a bunch of other people that will message me about similar issues because I post that kind of stuff on my YouTube channel. Like, if you're afraid to market your game, you're afraid to show people something, you've got one of two problems. Either the thing is objectively really bad, and that's the reality of it. It's just really bad. I know it. Yeah. Or you have a self-esteem issue where you think the thing is really bad. You think that the creative thing that you made that came from you is just bad. And it's usually one of those two issues. And most of the time it happens to be the self-esteem issue because even like the bad, there's no way to define that. There's no mathematical formula to define what's good or what's bad. And what I've realized is like things that I think are objectively bad. Like, for example, I launched an indie game in February, learned a lot since then. I watch people play through it, and there are some, like, what I see, some objective design flaws, right? Like, okay, they went there, they didn't see that thing. That means it's bad to me. Like that, and I could argue that point to other people and say, see that thing? That's bad. But they don't see that. They don't see that piece of it. They see the experience. They say, I had fun playing it. They talk about the experience that you were talking about. Like, it made me feel great. I love the way you did whatever. Like, so even if you can objectively, define why things are bad, that doesn't mean someone still can't have a good experience playing it. It's crazy how that works out. I spent so much time trying to make my game great, and that's not even like a achievable thing.
Yeah, I think there's steps as well when you can figure out, is my game bad, okay, or good enough to release? Like, there's those kind of, I think they're macro like that. You don't need to be saying, is it as good as the best game? Don't make that comparison. But if you show your game to your friends, and it's a real arm wrestle to get them to play it and try it. Like, come on, man, just give it a shot. Hey, can you try it again? And they're like, I'm busy, I got stuff going on. Then there's the first barrier. Right. Friends tend not to say this is a bad game. They're like, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, hey, woohoo. And so they give you this feedback that you think it must be pretty good. The test with your friends is if you give your game to your friend and your friend doesn't want to stop playing it, then you're onto something. If you give it to your friend and they don't even want to try it, then you've got an issue with that kind of love at first sight issue. Maybe the graphics don't quite look right. They don't quite understand it. Maybe it's the game is a bit confusing. So maybe there's an issue there in communicating that. If they play it for a minute and then give it back to you, then you've got an issue with your gameplay, with the game being compelling, with creating an experience. So you can get a lot out of your friends from that. And then in terms of sharing it with other indie developers, same thing. If you share it, you show it to people. Here's my screenshot Saturday, and here's my 20-second video of what's going on, or here's my pitch, or here's what I've got, and you get 3 likes and no comments, then your game's not ready. It needs to have enough people, more than just 1 or 2, at least a handful of people saying, hey, that's really cool. Keep up the good work. I'm looking forward to that coming out. So I think that's what you can get. Like, that's about all you can get out of those groups. And then it's getting it out there. Just putting it out there, trusting, even if it's here's version 1, I'll do a sequel later on, and learning from the feedback, listening to what people say. And I know for me it's tough. A lot of what I do nowadays is making indie games for fun, but also making indie games so I can teach people how to make indie games. So a lot of my courses, which are on Udemy, have a feedback mechanism, which is great. 19 people, you're awesome, Rick. I love this. 1 person, Rick, you suck. This is awful. This is I'd rather stick a needle in my eye kind of thing. And I think it's that negative feedback that is the most valuable. Like, why did you hate it? Is it because I spoke too fast, spoke too slow, took too long to get to the concept? Could you not understand me? What was the problem? So embrace the negative feedback. Don't, put aside the fact they've called you a name or they were nasty about it. They're clumsy with their feedback, but they're giving you the gift of here's how you can improve. So that's what I would add into that whole feedback loop.
You have to get good at taking in people saying bad stuff about you or about your game, and you have to separate, I think, the two as well. Like, if somebody says, oh, this game sucks, they're not saying that you as a creator suck. They're being honest with you. Honesty is not always the easiest thing to do. It's a good thing, and you learn something, right? And I also think, so what you're saying too about like sharing with people, this is another thing where marketing comes into play, because I think of marketing as like the total experience from, oh, I discovered this thing, to, oh, I finished this thing. Like, not just the buying part. I think of it as like their whole interaction with the thing, because that's going to determine future sales. If someone discovered my thing, bought my thing, played my thing, and that whole process was generally positive, when they see I have another thing, they're going to go out and buy it, right? Because they remember, like, oh, it made me feel good or whatever. If any part of this process is bad, like if it's really hard to find your game, that's bad. If it's really hard to buy your game, that's bad. If it's really hard to play your game, that's bad. Like, any part of that process can mess that up, right? And what you were saying about like the showing it to people, and here's the crazy thing about marketing, is like, you can have the same game, same type of person, and you can one build, for example, might have a very good onboarding process that can affect how that person learns the game, how that person feels about the game, how the person plays the game, and it can affect their overall experience, right? You could change something like the GIF that you post. Posting one section of the game might appeal to certain types of people. Posting another section of the game might appeal to other types of people. The way that you describe the game can appeal to one type of person, can appeal to another type of person. And what you'll find is that the things you put on the internet are going to attract. Think of them like magnets, right? But you got different magnets for different types of people. Yep. And a lot of times a total market, like the total number of people that are going to buy your game, are made up of a bunch of tiny little sub-markets.
So do you think it's better to have one, like, here's my best magnet, I'm going to push that out because, the most people like this one magnet, or you want to have your 5 magnets to try to capture those different segments of people? Like,
I think you should always, so my philosophy is like quantity over quality, because I feel like it's easier to discover quality than to design it, basically. Yep. So like the way that I did my YouTube channel for a while, dude, it was just like, I'm going to make everything that I can think of as fast as I possibly can. And then something is going to do better. And there were videos that just shot up, thousands of views. Everybody loved them. I was like, okay, guess what? When it came to like speak at a conference, that was the subject that I chose. When it came to writing a book, those are my book titles, right? My book chapters, because those are the subjects that have like this virality built into them. People like them. And a lot of people in there so afraid to share, and like, okay, well, they share one thing, but then somebody said something negative, so they don't share anymore. Like, they're robbing themselves of their ability to understand the good things about their game that they don't understand at this point. Like, I realized this with Philophobia. The way that I came up with the whole, okay, Philophobia is a game about the fear of love, where love is literal hell, all of the enemies are hearts, and it's based on the 5 stages of grief. When I just say that one sentence, there's so much there, and everybody's like, what? And I have different versions of that sentence. Some are shorter, some are, more detailed, but I didn't design that. It was when I'm Twitch streaming and people say things, and they're like, what is this game about? And they ask me that over and over again, and I have to keep telling them. And then first it was like, well, it's this platform that I'm working on for a couple of, and then, but like, that doesn't have a good reaction. They leave. But then when I say this other thing, they ask, can you tell me more about this? What is this? And then so I start to just kind of doing this whole quantity thing of just like dumping all the information that I can about my project. I start to see that when I say certain things, people resonate with it, right? They respond differently. They respond better. They respond more often. And then I keep regurgitating those things. And then also I modify them as time goes too. That's why a lot of people go to like PAX and stuff like that, for those very reasons.
So you mentioned Twitch, and I've had conversations with coaching clients of mine. I do lots of one-on-one coaching for up-and-coming indie developers, people looking to crack into the market or get a job. And one of the things that I've had a lot of recently is people saying, I think I should make a Twitch channel so that I can sell my game. And my immediate reaction is, oh, that sounds loose. That doesn't necessarily, sound like it's a way to sell your game. Other people have said I'm going to start my Twitch channel so that I can understand my players more. And that for me feels better. When it comes to a Twitch channel, what have you found, or what would you recommend in your experience? What are you doing? Are you streaming you making your current game so that people get the value out of, oh, that's how he's making his game, that's interesting, maybe one day I'll buy that game as well? Or are you just playing games and saying, hey, look, I'm a cool guy, hang out with me, and by the way, I've got a game? How are you entering the Twitch space from the point of view of, that marketing funnel you were talking about, from exposure to sale? How does Twitch fit into that for you?
Okay, so I'm probably not the run-of-the-mill, because I have a YouTube community. I have a bunch of people on an email list. Like, I have this community that I built over years. So the way that I interact with them, I think, is a little bit different than some people would act if they didn't have any of that. So like, for example, I can just go live. I can send out an email. I can post a YouTube video about it, and I can just get lots of people there. But honestly, the core reason I stream is loneliness, man. I get lonely. And when I'm streaming on Twitch, I'm hanging out with 40, 50 people. I can make games with people. I don't make games alone, right? And it's fun. And then, every once in a while I have a bug I can't fix, and there's a smart person in stream, and they can say, hey, line 64, that's cool too. But it has nothing to do with marketing. I think Twitch is probably the least effective marketing tool out there, because the discoverability is really, really bad. So for example, the way that Twitch organizes the people is by category, and then by category it's organized by how many people are watching that person, which means when you start, you're going to be all the way on the bottom. And it's one of those things that's like a snowball effect. So the more you get, the more people see you. So the more you get, and it's just kind of,
if you're the most popular restaurant in town, then people just can't get a booking. Right. More people, I want to go there because I can't get a booking. That must be amazing, that place.
And it kind of so that's why it's really effective to kind of do what I did, is like build an audience elsewhere and then bring them to Twitch, because you can end up on their discoverability list.
I think it's important what you're talking about there. Maybe we can transition into that discussion a little bit for anyone who's watching at the moment, who's an indie developer or who wants to be an indie developer. I think you need to be comfortable in the knowledge that most of the time, particularly if you're solo, you're sitting at home in your home office on your own, immersed in your world, your game world, and you need to generate all of the power. You are the power station. You are the solar panels on top of your own roof, your shiny bald head roof that is generating all the power for yourself. No one else is generating that for you. Like if you're in a workplace or at school, there's usually mechanisms and structures to have you know what should I do today, and I'm going to be motivated to get it done. So I think if you're going into indie development knowing that, if you've already tried that out, I work well on my own, I'm cool working on my own, I've got that, then I think you're not going to be surprised by that. But what you're talking about with Twitch is you still have to connect with the world. You need to connect with your peers. You need to connect with people who get it. Maybe your friends and families don't quite get when you're there geeking out about Unreal or Unity or a new piece of code or graphics or a bug, and they're like, I don't even know what this guy's talking about. You need to find like-minded folks who can talk about that. So it's really cool to hear you say that Twitch is more about connection, keeping the drive going. Very important, not necessarily a marketing piece, but definitely a piece in terms of getting your game complete. And I think in the process, getting great feedback on what it is that you're up to, and having people that you can trust a little bit more. I think you can say to them, here's what I've got going on at the moment. Should I do A or should I do B? You know, is it better for the player to fall or to jump? And I think you get good, honest feedback from people who are also wanting to be just hanging out and be part of the club.
Yeah. I think that is a very close second as terms of like how effective it is. I definitely stream for the loneliness, but like if there was a thing that could overtake the loneliness in effectiveness, it would be the feedback, because that's another thing. It's like most people are sitting there all by themselves making a game, afraid to show it to anybody. I'm here making a game in front of everybody all the time, constantly iterating. Like we were talking before this started about how I'm trying this 3 to 6 months like experiment. Like, can I make an indie game in that short of a time and like launch it successfully commercially? And like the iteration speed is insane, because every iteration is always on Twitch, and at the end of every stream I publish a build and everybody plays it, and then when I stream the next day, I have all this feedback. I have, okay, this changed, this didn't work, this, you know, whatever. And the iteration, you can't beat that. Like literally, now there's some bias that comes with that, people liking you as, you know, a content creator and stuff. You have to understand that. It's the same kind of like friend syndrome sometimes, where it's like, oh, you did a good job. You learn to like, you know, see who is willing to be honest with you and who can like, you know, tell you the hard things. And those are very valuable people. But even just the feedback of like people playing your thing, that's another thing too that I learned with Phylophobia, is like there was so long where nobody could play the thing, and it was crazy. The fact that I'm building this game live on Twitch, but also it's playable, it has to be playable all the time, is super valuable. It's super valuable because at any point there's always a build that's out that someone can play and give me valuable feedback at their, you know, earliest time or whatever, best for them.
So logistics on that, where do you host your build? Where do you put it? And I've got a follow up about people worried. People are worried about this thing in a moment, but where do you host it? Where do you say, go get it here?
So a lot of people rag on me, but I don't use Unity. I use Construct 3, which is a HTML5 JS tool, which means I can export directly to a native website. So I just plop the build on my website and I give them a link, which is another thing that reduces the barriers between, hey, I want to play this thing, so I play this thing. They could literally click a link and then their browser shows up. They don't got to wait for a Unity plugin to load. They don't got to wait for, you know, install, turn on Flash or something. So much. And that's another game jam tip, by the way. You want to do game jams, you want people to play your stuff, you make HTML5 builds, because no one wants to download and install.
No one wants to download. Here's an executable. I promise you it's got no malware in it. Well, only a little bit. Okay, well, it'll just get all your passwords, but don't worry about it.
And installers are the next level. Like, no one wants to install a game jam game, okay? Like,
you just need to go install Unreal and then you can play my game. What? Why would I do that?
Yeah. So that's another thing that marketing taught me, is like reducing the barriers. Just
reduce
like
the friction. Yeah.
Making it easy as possible to do the thing I want you to do.
Same when you're showing that here's my game. If you're posting that on Reddit or Facebook or anywhere, it has to be, in my opinion, has to be a video or a GIF. Like
Oh, you're
you
protecting yourself
cannot,
there.
you cannot post. Here's a link to my game. Like go download it, play it, do whatever until people are already engaged in it and asking for it and want it. But it has to be, here's my 20 seconds of the most awesome part of my game.
Yeah.
There was something you were saying that I think is a little bit of a concern I see from students and definitely from a lot of the coaching clients I've had in the past is if I have build number one, I've been working on this for a month, build number one, it looks bad, it plays bad, it's not ready. If I give this to people, it's going to damage my connection with them. They're going to say, this game sucks, I'm never going to buy it because look how awful it is. That's one thing. And then the other thing they say as a reason why they shouldn't put it out there is someone's going to steal this idea and make $1 million before I get to do that. And I think I'm guessing you and I are on the same page with this. And it'd be cool for someone other than me to be like, here's what you got to do. What are your thoughts on that whole, it's not ready, they're never going to buy it if I show them the shit version, and they're going to steal it. What are your thoughts on those two?
Okay, so first one is not ready. There's a saying in the startup world that if you wait too long, or you're not embarrassed to show what you got, you waited too long. And I believe that 100%, because I think actually the opposite happens. Is you show somebody, it looks horrible, they say that, and then 6 months later they look at it and they're like, whoa, dude, you've come that far? That's amazing. I want to see this now, because last time I saw that it looked like, and everybody likes to tell that story, right? I knew the thing before it was cool. So I
feel invested in it. Yeah, exactly.
They watch the growth. I think a lot of gamers now are starting to follow. I've noticed this with my YouTube channel too. I have a lot of people that aren't game developers that follow my progress. And they enjoy the process of saying, hey, I made a thing. And then 2 months later, they see that same thing in a different way. And then they see the changes. That's part of the whole thing that I'm doing on Twitch. A lot of people really like that whole creative process. I have people get really involved in my creative process and send me messages when I'm offline and say, hey, that problem we were talking about, I sent you. Like they like seeing the evolution of things. It's really, really cool. So if you're scared, don't be scared, man. I lost so much time and revenue and all kinds of stuff just out of fear, and there's nothing to be afraid of, because even here's the thing, that stems from like a scarcity mindset too. You think that if I show this person and they don't like it, then one less person is going to buy it. And the reason why that's scary is because you think there's not that many people that are going to buy it, right? When you realize how big the world is and what you actually can do with the internet, like if you just understand those numbers, it's not even a drop in the bucket. It's like a grain of sand on a beach. Like even if your worst nightmare comes true and that person hates it and will never buy it, you still got feedback, and there are way more people than you could possibly fathom that are willing to buy your game.
Yeah.
What was the second one?
Stealing your idea.
Stealing ideas. Okay, that's another big one that comes up in the startup world as well, because everybody's like, oh, they think they put all the value in the idea, right? Like, this is the thing that's good. Like, no one thought of this. But I think it's a pretty common interpretation, especially in startups, that there's not much value on the idea. I believe there's a lot of value in an idea, but the only way to take an idea out of a conceptual form in someone's head is to execute on it and to build the thing. And you got to understand that if you give someone an idea, the only way for them to steal that idea is to spend months slaving away on the thing and building and spending all that time. And here's the thing a lot of people don't realize is that they all got their own ideas that they think are cooler than yours, and they think you're going to steal their ideas. So if they were going to build something, they're probably going to build their own, right? And on top of that, even if they do steal your idea, I would bet everything that I own that what they make will be different than what you make, because ideas don't have all the details. They're not design documents, right? They're like conceptual things that inspire other things. It's kind of like I'm building a procedural game at the moment, and it's you change one little number in the random seed and everything generates differently from one little number. Even though there are a bunch of numbers in the seed, you give it one little number and the whole map will just be completely different because it uses that as a base. And that's kind of what ideas are, is they're they're not the whole finished thing. They're like the seed for the thing. It's ironic they're both called seeds, but like, yeah, literally like a seed for the thing, and then how it grows is up to the person that waters it.
I find as well that people steal successful things. There's an idea, it's going to be a VR game where you put the things on and then you spin around and you get dizzy and then you play your game. Oh, it's going to be amazing. It's like, cool idea. Don't know if it's going to work. Don't know if people are going to buy it. Don't know any of these things. It just seems cool. It seems logically like something that's good. I'm going to wait until you make your game, release your game, sell 1 million copies, and then it's like, we got to get some of that. And that's a good problem to have. After you've succeeded, then people will come and steal your thing. So you've got to be ready to do the next thing that's even better. But people just don't steal ideas. They steal success as opposed to potential for success.
Which is a whole nother problem, because people are like, oh, I'm going to take this idea from this and this and this and this. It's going to be like Super Meat Boy meets like Halo, and it's going to be, and then you end up with a kitchen sink of a
crazy
thing. But,
so I think that's cool. We've explored some marketing stuff. Hopefully there's some value in people watching, or value to people watching that, here's some ideas for marketing, here's how to construct it. I think a lot of it is courage as well, just going for it. Put yourself out there, get feedback, find the people who are already interested in what it is that you're offering. Based upon what you're saying, Tim, the competitive analysis of similar products, find the people who would report on that, YouTubers or bloggers, contact them, like be very focused with your marketing efforts rather than just like popping it out there. Go beyond friends and family, use that to get good input, good feedback, but not necessarily to try to sell it to them. And then just make sure you're motivated from the point of view of keeping pushing forward. And I think it's cool. You've talked things like have a Twitch channel or other ways that you can connect with like-minded folks. Have a chat with them each day. How you doing today? What are you going to get done today? Good work. Celebrate each other's success. Be part of a community. I know that the courses that we create over at Game Dev TV, there's big community, there's forums, people sharing, helping. So, there's plenty of ways for you to find your tribe. It could be through a course community. It could be through a particular subreddit. So I think there's lots of ways to find your tribe. Don't try to do it completely on your own, isolated from the world. It doesn't make a better product, and it doesn't, I think, make for a healthy person if you get too isolated. So I mean, a little bit of a summary what I've taken out of our chat just now.
I think that's the most valuable clip of it all. I think the last little thing of the loneliness, like I think a lot of people, I don't want to generalize, but
but you're going to do it anyway.
For me growing up, I'm going to talk about my experience. And, like I didn't always have the most friends. I got made fun of a little bit. I isolated myself a lot. The way that like I expressed myself was usually alone with my own thoughts, creating my own things. And I think there's a lot of people in a creative space that have qualities like that. Like they like their brain, they like sitting by themselves and making things, they like that whole process, and it's really dangerous to go down to a road where like you kind of forget about life and just create things, and like for me especially, I think it's probably worse for the people that like go full-time indie, like they do this as they want to like jump into it head first and go for it, because they don't realize they're becoming an entrepreneur and a creative person and like all the other jobs that are required to actually make it. And it can just be, if you're not careful, you can like isolate yourself and you can end up in a position where you're overworked and unhappy. And I think when I think about making games, I think about something fun, right? And there's a lot of things that could take the fun out of something so fun, just because like life and stuff. So if you want to do something, I wouldn't worry about what's the best way to do it or when to do this or where to go and all that. I would just focus on like making it appealing to do it, because the more fun you have doing it, the more you do it, and ultimately the more you do it, I think is how you level up your skills and you get better at stuff. And like the marketing thing, honestly, the best way to learn how to market in games is to market a bunch of games and do badly. You know, like that didn't work for that last game. Let's try it again for our next one. Like,
and
something
watch what other people do. Like you don't have to invent things. Go see and ask them as well. This is one thing that I think we forget to do because we think it's competition. Like Tim makes games, I make games. Ooh, he's my enemy, arch rival. But it's not like that at all. If you look at how many games people have in their Steam library, I've got like 100. I don't know. There's plenty of space for people to have more than 1 or 2 or 10 games out there, the players. So there's plenty of space for us to team up, help each other, have your game be a success, have my game be a success. And it's similar when it comes to you as an indie developer, you, person watching as an indie developer, reaching out and asking people questions. How did you do this? Do you have any tips for that? Hey, I see you're doing such and such. You know, can I pick your brain? Always make sure you're giving people the least amount of work when you contact them. I get people like, hey, Rick, can you tell me how to succeed? Like, I can, you know, but that's pretty big. But if you come at them with a very specific, hey, this will take 1 minute. Can you please tell me, you know, would you recommend doing A or recommend doing B? Or can you tell me, how did you go about getting featured in this particular whatever? So ask people questions. Don't try to do it alone. Like, look and say, who can I ask for help? Who can I ask a question? Because I think one of the cool things about this indie game development industry is it's a pretty tight community. People want to see other people succeed and help each other.
Yeah, and I think that like the mindset of if someone succeeds, someone else has to fail, I think is wrong. And I don't really know where that comes from, but it seems like it's common. There's like a lot of times it's quite the opposite. Like if you ever see a Burger King next to a McDonald's, next to a Subway, like next to all these different restaurants, it's because Subway says, hey, there are people that want food at lunchtime on this corner. We're going to move in there too. And then McDonald's does it, and all these places do it. And that's why malls exist, right? When Macy's and Sears and all these different places are there, they're not saying, oh, well, we're not going to move in there because Macy's is already there and they're going to take all the... No, that's where the people are. Let's all move in there and let's hang out and we'll share the people, right? Because there's more enough than we could possibly imagine. I wish more people got that and had a more of an abundance view on like, there's more people than you could possibly imagine. You just got to find the ones that are already ready to buy your game.
Yep. Awesome. Cool. So let's say we wrap it up here, Tim. Awesome, super amazing conversation. If folks are watching my channel right at the moment, my YouTube channel, I'd love for you to go check out Tim's channel. It's amazing. There's lots of great, very honest, authentic conversations. We'll give some links. How do we do links nowadays? In the description, over on the side. Tim's going to have it like implanted across his forehead. Anything else that people should know about you or where to find more of your stuff, Tim?
You can just search Game Dev Underground to find my YouTube channel or Tim Ruswick on Twitch, and I stream 3 days a week.
Awesome. Game Dev Underground. Fantastic. Cool. Thanks very much, Tim. Awesome. Thank you for your sharing today and the tips. Hopefully we can get you back here for another conversation sometime soon.
I'd love to.